Welcome to Mum Days, a beautiful collective of mamas and experts sharing wisdom, inspiration, and life hacks to support us on this journey through the hazy days of motherhood.
I was joking. I said to Mom earlier, when Gabe and I got married and he made me steak on the barbecue, and he's amazing at making steak. Mm-hmm. I was like, no, I hate steak. I never eat steak. And he was like, what is wrong with you? And I ate it and I'm like, this is the best thing I've ever eaten in my life. What on earth? And I told him, I said, well, when I was really little, my mom would give us liver, but she used to just call it steak.
It was cheap.
I like liver now.
I love liver.
I do now, but as a kid, what kid wants to eat liver? And she'd let us put, ketchup on it or whatever. As I got a little older, it wasn't a big deal. But I in my head, it must have just stuck that that's steak. And I remember having steak even growing up. Like I remember Dad making it other times, but I was like, couldn't chew it, or it didn't appeal to me. Like it just wasn't something that my brain went, this is yummy, until I had really good steak. But I thought that was really funny. And then as a mom, lying to my kids about certain foods.
I used that for my son. I told him that canned salmon was tuna because he refused to eat this pink thing. And he's like, so I bought the pink salmon that's not as pink.
Yeah, the lighter.
It was tuna. Yeah, mixed it with mayo, so it was even lighter. And
I did that with
tuna. He's like, this is really good.
No, I did that with Emma because she loved tuna. And the first time I did it, it was the really pink one. And I actually got the one that has the bones and stuff in it.
Mm-hmm.
I like that. And I gave it to her. She ate it. And it's now she prefers that over. So I eventually told her it wasn't tuna.
Isn't that funny? Because I really like the bone and I like to crush it all up and leave it in.
Yeah, me too.
And Ted, my husband now, he just hates that because he's
a
big fisherman.
Yeah, Gabe hates the bone.
He doesn't want one bone. He's a real good cleaner of fish.
Yeah.
It's all the calcium, man.
Yeah.
Fillets have to be absolutely.
Well, it's a little different with canned fish because it just falls apart.
But still,
like
I can't put it in his canned fish. And I said, well, you do it.
You pick it out.
You pick it out. I do mine.
You can debone your own, Selma.
And he's fine with that.
That's
and I said, I'm not doing that. This is better for you.
Funny.
So I knew that. And my dad would always say that too. Like he was good at stuff. He liked Limburger cheese too.
Oh my gosh.
But, he was really good at stuff like I don't know. He was really...
well, he was more the easygoing one too, I think, between the two.
And he was more open-minded and experimental, I think, right? Yeah. Like he was willing to try things.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, yeah. Oh, my dad?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. On the moon. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
He was, like he made his first sailboats out of Red Path sugar bags. We have pictures of that. It says Red Path on the sails. He was the first one on Lake Kagwan that ever had a sailboat, and those boys sailed that boat back and forth.
Awesome.
Yeah,
made skis and stuff like that for you guys, right? Like
water skiing, disc on the disc.
Oh yeah,
you look back at the things we learned to do. I'm like, I used to go behind a boat on a wooden slab.
Yeah. And the skis.
Looking back at that, I'm like, how did we not die?
And snow for downhill skiing and
downhill skis. Yeah.
He put all the metal edging along the skis and made sure they were all perfect every year, so we could cut into the snow to Penguin back up the hill, because it cost a quarter, or maybe it went to 50 cents.
Use the lift?
To use the T-bar, Palmolift was called a Palmolift.
You just sit on the little bar.
No, this had a seat.
Oh, it had a seat.
Came down like this around and had a seat. And first time I went on, he had a quarter that day. It was just him and me. And I thought, well, because all the other kids, of course, they were growing up there. They weren't all there. He didn't, it didn't have to be paid for. I just followed him down the hill. I had no reservations. I knew if he's going down that hill, I'm safe. I go down that hill, follow him. And I did. And that's how I learned to ski. Showed me how to cut in. Then we get on the Palmolift. Well, he's going up. Here I am, little tiny legs, and I'm sitting on this round seat. Well, the thing stops because it goes to the ground. Yeah. It pulls you behind your bum up the hill, and your legs are off the hill, and you're going up, and then it pulls you up.
Yeah.
But very little off the ground. But if you sit down on it, like if you start to sit down on, it'll like they stop the thing.
Yeah. You're not supposed to sit on it. It's supposed to push you up.
Pulls behind you. So my skis would be touching there because I was late enough, and it would pull me on up. But I initially went and I grabbed it and I sat down. I hit the snow right in the bottom. He's going, stand up. I go, okay, and they stopped it and I started again. Things like that, that's
I love
Yeah.
that though. He just jumped in and he was like, let's just do it.
Yeah, he
We
always.
can do this.
I bought a sailboat. He says, okay, there's St. Mary's River. Put her in. You know,
Go do it.
Threw it on my car up on top there, a little racer one. Put it in the river. He says, okay. He says, so I'm thinking, I'm out in the river. How do I turn back? How am I going to get back to shore? I've been in the sailboat with him all my life, but never really had the concept of letting the pulling
Yeah.
the sail in
How to maneuver it. all.
and turn it off the wind to bring that sail around without jibing it. Okay, jibing means that you've brought it this way. You're supposed to let it out and turn the opposite way to let the wind off your sail and gently come around. And so therefore I'm yelling back at shore, I can't come back. I can't come back. He says, yes, you can. He's yelling, yes, you can. You let that sail go. And I said, no, because then I'll lose my sail. He didn't mean it that way. And I didn't let it
Let
go
it out,
because
yeah.
I knew that. But he's turned the other way. I'm going into it. And it's going to tip me over because I'm too much wind in my sail, right? So I thought, oh, the other way? Okay, so I'm coming back around. And sure enough, thing comes around. It bluffs itself. I get out of the way. Comes around, bam, in the wind again. And I'm heading for shore.
Yeah. So just for reference, St. Mary's River is not like a little river.
No. And my
like-
head.
Like
I
sending you
don't
over
wanna-
Great Lake and
I
going
don't
like, go
want to
figure
fall
it
in
out.
that river because there's lots of poop logs floating around there. That's what we're always told. They
Oh
just
my
dump all the
goodness.
tankers coming through. It's dirty, dirty. So I got back to
That's
shore, and then he
hilarious.
started to explain. You see what you did in the sand? He's showing me how that.
After the fact.
That's it. It's the first time
After
I get
that,
it tonight.
exactly.
He says, "Do you know how if that boat flips over? Do you know how you're going to bring it back up?" I said, "No." He says, "You take it right out there right now. When we're at the cottage,
You're gonna
he
go
says,
bail.
take it out there till you can touch the ground, touch the bottom of the lake." He says, "Okay." He says, "Run it back and forth to let it go over." I let it go over. The thing, I had to go further than I could touch because the sail would be too long. He told me so. Sure enough,
You flipped it.
he says, "You get on the other side and pull that thing back up. Get over." So I grabbed over. He says, "Bring it back right away, or else," he says, you're going to get water in your mast and
Yeah,
the pipe
it'll be too heavy.
inside." He says, "And you can't bring her back." My new sailboat.
So can you
He's
imagine if
telling
we
me
did this today, Don? Can you imagine as moms, all the naysayers on the beach?
Yeah.
Oh, look at those terrible
Yeah.
parents. What are they doing?
But-
I think honestly, like
Yeah.
thinking back to, and I'm grateful that we, like you and Dad, were like that with us too, to a certain extent. You weren't hovering
Well, you
in
had
the way that parents do now. I think we have different. It's a different time, obviously. I mean, we have genuine concerns that weren't present even when we were younger, or we just weren't aware of them. But I think we do get to a point where we're hyper aware as parents, right? Like, I mean, would you today just throw your kid in the pool and be like, go figure it out? Swim.
Yeah, we didn't.
Yeah, and I think like that's the thing, right? Like if you really want your kids to grow up to be resilient, you have to allow your kids to do pretty much whatever they want within a limit, right? And keep your hands off, keep your nose out. If they're gonna fall, let them do it because it's all part of the learning experience, right?
Well,
But the
right.
moment that we
Forward.
jump in and protect and oh, be careful because this could happen or that could happen, this could happen. Then all of a sudden the kid's like, my world's not safe, and
Right.
Yeah, I
you know,
think
I can't do anything.
Fear that of what if that because of what our brain now knows. Like I think our generation and the generations now after us, in one way, are kind of plagued with that because we know too much. We almost
Right.
have, we're a knowledge centered world now where we didn't know when we were little that I used to ride my bike with Dad down the highway to school
Right.
with transport going by. Like he just taught me how to ride the little line on the edge of the road.
Yeah.
And I think back, I'm like, I'm terrified letting my kids ride down to a dead end court on a beachfront road where there's like 3 cars, but
Right.
It's a totally different place now. The world is. And yet our kids are the same kids. They have the same needs to have that autonomy and be able to test the limit within boundaries. Like you have to set up boundaries, obviously, what's safe and what makes sense. But I love that, hearing that about Grandpa and the experiences I had, growing up, even skiing with Dad. He used to take me down when the ski hill was closed. We'd go cross country skiing. He'd take me up, and on a ping, and he'd take me down on my cross country skis down the down ski hill. Like I wouldn't do that. But at the time, like, sure, let's go.
there is a line where my parents, they built a trust and a respect for the fear. So
Yeah.
I trusted them. They built that trust. They never threw me in the water or anything like that. I learned. So I go out to learn it, and you learn it. That's how my dad
It was
would say,
intentional.
Yeah.
It wasn't just go do it. I'm not going to watch you or
never.
tell
And,
you.
and they were there.
Right.
So they did it while they're there with instruction, but they weren't afraid to loosen the strings where
Yeah.
if something happened, then you have to ride through that storm.
Figure it out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you got to ride through. I'll be there. But
I
you
feel like
gotta
our
ride
kids
through
don't.
that.
Our kids now don't
We
have
have
that
to be there.
because we rescue, right? We immediately rescue and we come in and go, listen, I'll pick that up for you. I'll fix that for you. Oh, you didn't do well. I'm going to go talk to the teacher. We solve the problem so much. I think mainly because it's convenient for us, right? Rather than dealing with it and helping them have natural consequences. And we've talked about this, with different guests I've had too who do, parenting coaching, talking about those consequences and talking about at what age do natural consequences require that teamwork and that communication and whatever. But I think we, as parents in a generation where I wasn't afraid to do something wrong, like as far as trying new things, like I never felt afraid that if I failed a test, I was going to get yelled at. Like my dad was a school teacher and I still didn't get that feeling. It was more about, hey, I think you're smarter than this. I think you could have done better. Where did you forget to study? That was it. Like it was more of a, all right, what do you need to do? What do you need to do next time? So, and every parent I think has their thing too, where it's like, this is a non-negotiable or this really matters to me. I think we've done a disservice to our kids in some sense because we don't give them that freedom. And it is a scary world compared to the one we grew up in. I 100% would agree with parents on that. It's not the 70s. If I could raise my kids in the 80s, I would do it in a heartbeat.
I've seen a change.
Right? It'd be fun.
I've seen a change in this generation where kids are raised in fear,
right,
instead of respect.
Yes.
And so in my generation, I grew up not just loving my parents, but I didn't do things out of respect of who they were and what they were and their history and their position. So I grew up with a love of that, but to respect that, not a fear that you're going to get beaten down if or if I do that, I'm going to really. So there were things that I could bring to my parents. There were things that I didn't bring to my parents. It wasn't worth to do that, and I didn't want to bother them with it. But when I was bullied at school or that, I went to my dad and cried and said, "This is what's happening." And they both went to the school with me, talked to the principal with me, not in front of the teacher, the children, or anything like that. The principal then settled it with the classroom type of thing that someone has been, and don't you ever, and my name wasn't mentioned. So things can be done so well, but parents need to respect and honor their children also with what they're telling you, and they need to have that comfort. Yeah. There's kids that they come to their parents and they tell them something and they're not comforted by it. Or let's say a girl is raped, and they say, well, don't say anything or don't.
Well, what did you do?
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
What was your part in that?
Yeah. So it was just, So I see a difference in that where the kids are fearful to bring anything up in case they're going to get knocked down by words or by no empathy.
Yeah, or just a lack of concern. I think we're in a generation of distracted parenting, right? We hear this all the time that you've got helicopter parenting to a certain age, and then you detach. It's like suddenly you're good. You're 13 now. Off you go. You run your life, make your decisions. I'm now going to be your friend. I'm not going to be your mom anymore. I'm now your buddy.
That's no good.
And that respect isn't there, right? And that's hard. I think we've all learned that through our life about those boundaries, but also knowing that trust and that respect for each other. And
if we're dating, when I started dating, just one last thing, I'm not going to. These guys need to talk. Or Dawn does. I haven't heard much from her.
I know.
But when I started, in a sense of dating, I had to go out with a group of the kids. Your dad, Don, would come pick me up, but then we were meeting someplace with a group of kids. And then I had a certain time to be home. It was usually 9:00, and I'd be home by 9:00. So I had a couple hours there. But it was funny. My mother, I remember once saying, and I don't know if it was to me or it wasn't really to me. I think it was to my oldest sister. They were just talking about something. And my mom said, well, they just need to learn to keep their knees closed and their feet on the ground. And that wouldn't have happened to her. I think she
Oh.
got pregnant.
Yeah.
And there was a statement, something like that. And my mom they were kind of talking about it. It was just, my mom wouldn't ever say that to, you know, it was just between her and my oldest sister kind of thing. And just a
But that
saying-
was the
ju-
mentality.
yeah, just a saying type of thing. And they were feeling bad for this girl and wanted to help her and this kind of thing. And they were getting some clothes together and some baby things and that. I think that's what was happening that I can recall. But that's what, you know, Mom said, now, Marilyn, remember to mind your manners type of thing and be good. Those were my things. I never knew where babies come from. She never discussed anything like that. There was no, I thought when I was about 16, 17, they came out of my belly button because the cord was attached
That's where the cord
there.
was.
So it has to come out there. And
Right.
imagine at that age to be in that. And I thought, if I kiss a boy, I'm going to get in trouble. You see?
That's okay.
So-
my lie to my kids is that if you kiss the opposite sex, you get pregnant.
Oh,
So far, they
Yeah,
believe
well-
me. My 13-year-old knows better now. He knows the whole process. But so far, I've got the two little ones.
so
Still believe-
those
I'm
were-
going with it.
Yeah. So the kissing aspect was, you
Whatever
know,
works.
and in my generation growing up when I was a teenager, you know, parking and necking was a big thing, and the foggy
Necking.
windows in the necking, called necking,
yeah.
you know, at the park, and that the police would come around, tap on the window and shine the flashlight in to make sure nothing like that was happening.
Do you know what
and
I
stuff.
thought? Do you know what I grew up thinking necking was? Like
Huh?
giraffes, like rubbing their necks together. I 100%, because Mom would use that term, necking, and I was like, okay, don't ever rub your neck against another neck. Like, that is so, I had no idea what it was. I'm
Oh
like, what
my
the heck is this?
Oh dear.
That's what it
Cookie,
was.
That's Cookie.
Think about a kid. I was like,
Yeah,
necking.
yeah,
I don't
that's true.
understand. And I remember saying,
But it's a funny word.
well, I remember saying it to Tina, to my best friend,
A
at the
neighbor.
9. We were my daughter's age, and I was like, "Do you know what necking is?" And she
Well-
was like, "No," but she knew a lot more about other things.
When I was in grade 8,
They know all the other stuff.
a girl had this mark on her neck, and I remember one girl saying, "What were you necking? Because you got a hickey on your neck." I said, "What's a hickey?"
Yeah.
Like I'm like, "What's a hickey?"
I didn't know what a hickey was until I was
What's that?
well into high school.
Oh, they're sucking your neck because they're kissing you. I said, oh,
I'm going, ooh, ew. Yeah, exactly. Gross. Why would you do
Anyway.
that?
yeah, yeah. So
Too funny.
you learn a lot more when you get married. In that kind of generation, it's when you get married.
You learn as
Okay,
you go.
so,
You
so
learn as
that's
you-
what I was gonna ask you about that. So obviously your mom never had a talk with you about like your wedding night. She never
No.
gave you any details.
Nope, nothing.
You're just on your own.
Well,
Yeah, neither did mine.
I had an
Did your sister or a friend?
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. You had sisters. You had a good number
Never.
of sisters.
no, no,
That's
no.
funny, eh?
No, never talked about that. You just learn that on your own. I got a real nice, I had a nice bridal shower and got these beautiful nighties and things like that. I thought, oh, those are really pretty. I never think of anything in a sexual way in my generation.
Right.
I wasn't exposed to any of that too. So we didn't like, we had TV way on in our life. So and that was,
There's some simplistic beauty to that.
that was curtailed.
right
like,
in some ways.
I couldn't even watch
I wish we had some more of that.
shooting on it. Like if they were shooting
Yeah.
someone, forget it. You're not watching that.
Yeah.
You know, but so that kind of thing. So yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. So we learned on but when we were dating later on, when I was engaged right into almost when like, you know, a month before we were married and that we kiss more often. I know it sounds funny. We kiss. And I remember when
Oh my goodness.
they had brought
Scandalous.
brought me home. We were standing in the kitchen, and the light was off the kitchen because I didn't want to turn the light on in case my parents, if their bedroom door was open or
When
something.
you kiss them.
Yeah, and we were hugging and we were kissing, like intimately kissing like that, you know. And
They were necking.
yeah, yeah, but not like longer
Not on
than we
their necks.
normally do. And then he's saying, "Okay, goodbye." My dad walked out in the kitchen. The light was on. And he says, "Oh, sorry. Well, turn the light on, Marilyn. Because we're just saying good night. This is okay." So Steve says good night.
We see the boy you're necking.
And my dad went over to the sink and got his water, and Steve left the door, and I went out, and I just went on to my bedroom. But that was about, you know, that was
That's
quite
so
intimate.
funny.
But your wedding night is more of an intimate night, and that was nice because we got to know each other and we could feel each other and you know, that kind of thing.
You touch below the neck.
Yeah. And then when we had intercourse, of course, that night, then it was like, okay, so that's what it's all about. There was nothing
That was the big deal?
Nothing right there for me. Okay. Okay,
I'm
I guess
so glad your
that's-
dad isn't alive.
And
You
I
know
was
this,
on.
Dawn?
Yeah, and I was
Oh
on.
my goodness.
He'd say, "Oh, it was
I'm
really good. I really enjoyed it. I'm sure he
Yeah.
really had a good time." Yeah, okay. But so that's kind of it. And then he kind of he initiated everything. He kind of helped me along and stuff like that. And I realized, oh, there's more to intercourse than that. It feels good. We do other things. So that's kind of how we kind of grew through our marriage. But again, we were only married 4 years and really had only 2 really good years out of that because he was
Right.
sick, and it was hard.
Well, and you were so young too. Like
yeah,
that's,
yeah.
it's not like you had a lot of life experiences in between all of
And
that.
our
right?
concern was Dawn and looking after her, and then she had to go back and forth between the grandparents, and it was a real topsy turvy time for my life, and I was very vulnerable.
Mhm.
Those were years after, even when he passed away, I was vulnerable, not kind of knowing my dad and mom were really parenting me, were really stepping in and helping me in things, So that was really nice. And I kind of knew, okay, where I was at that time and who I started to discover who I really was and things like that. But you can get into, ladies, you can get into your own sphere of living and who you are because of what you do. And that's not who you are.
Yeah.
What you do is not who you are. And I learned that
So
the
much
hard
more
way
to
in the
us.
last time when my last husband passed away. I didn't know where to sit in church. I didn't know what I should be doing. I didn't know who I was anymore. I got lost, completely felt.
Yeah. Well, your identity becomes very wrapped up in your life with somebody.
And I didn't work anymore.
Yeah.
What am I? Who I got to start establishing what I enjoy. I don't want to work in anything I don't enjoy. And I found out then I wore 4 hats. I loved every job I did, every one. I could do them again today.
Yeah.
But it was a different life. And I was trying to contend with feeling my family's feelings, but not getting in their way. And I often felt I did. And they were so good to me. Dons were good to me, had me at their home and kept me. It was that was that, and I didn't, because I wasn't taught to express myself, but those were so heartfelt and meaningful to my life. Even when I was away and did things that she didn't want to do, she didn't want that. She didn't want my couch. She didn't want. I understand all that, but it's hindsight. Time looking back.
Yeah.
But to me, all that just kept me in the bubble that I needed at that time.
Mhm.
And you're both so kind and helped me in that. And I don't even know if you knew that you were doing that.
Well,
but you
even
did.
in that moment, like thinking, I mean, just for backstory, Dawn, your dad passed away when you were what, two?
Not quite 2, yeah.
You lost your first husband very,
Or
very,
2 and a bit, yeah.
and then remarried.
Just
and
had your birthday.
then my dad, I was born when you were married my dad, and then he passed away almost 12 years ago now.
12,
And that threw all of us for a massive spiral. I mean,
Yeah.
that as 3 women who were all women at that stage, that to lose your rock, and that impacted us
Mhm.
all in our
Yeah.
own ways. We all
Yeah.
dealt with it in our own ways, and we all walked through it together, but not together. Like there were moments that we were together, but like you said, like trying to share those emotions and that grief,
Yeah.
and yet still be supporting each other was very complicated.
Yeah.
It was. Yeah.
one of the hardest places I've ever been in my life, one of the darkest
Me
places
too.
I've ever been in my life.
Yeah.
And yet we did it. Like it
Yeah.
may not have shone through it. I'll tell you, there were very low moments, but
Yeah.
we did it. And I think especially to see Mom now and to see you come
Yeah.
into more of yourself,
Mhm.
that's
Yeah.
strength and that
Yeah.
ability to walk through that and then fight
Yeah.
cancer on top of that. Like
That was a
having
learning
Mom here
curve.
with us while she was going through cancer treatment,
That was.
Yeah.
I remember saying to my husband, I don't know how we'll be. Like me, I don't know how if I am going to do a good enough job of taking care of Mom
Mm.
while she's going through this. And yet in my head, I know that voice was still saying, your mom is so strong. Like
Yeah.
whether she's handling it well or not, she's going to handle it. And she did.
Yeah.
Like you went through chemo and cancer like a champ. Like I have never known anyone.
But that's because I was in a home where there was a family, and I didn't need.
But
you
I
to
think
care
it's
for
you
me.
too.
I didn't need you to care for me.
You didn't.
I just wanted to be where there was my kids. There was family. There was
And I
something
People. Yeah.
seeing that.
distracted, and
Yeah.
when Dawn would come with kids, this was a distraction for me.
Yeah.
So that
Yeah.
was my strength. That's really helped me.
That was so powerful to see you go through that and be able to just be there if you needed me.
But the difference to Holly, I remember that when your dad passed away, is that your friend had come to where we were having the
burial. Yeah.
the burial, and I was totally put out in myself.
I know.
I was really bitter about that because this was a family affair. This was a family tragedy. This was a family mourning time, and you had, of all things, had invited your friend to come to jump into that, which I hadn't. You hadn't asked. She wasn't welcome. All of that in my head. Now I look back. There's a regret. That was the best thing you could have done for yourself.
Well, and in hindsight, for me at the time, I didn't
recognize it.
Our marriage was over, so I was in a position where I didn't have someone to lean on.
Yeah,
I was holding my family together, and that's not anything you knew. That's
no,
not
and I
anything
was
most
trying to
people
hold
knew.
it all together.
Right. So that's what I mean. We were all in our own little bubble trying to
Yeah.
handle this and
Yeah.
the best way we could.
Yeah.
But our communication was terrible because
It was, yeah.
we know what we were feeling or what we were
Yeah.
able to say and not say. And we wanted to just do the best we could. And
Yeah.
I'll never forget that in a bad way, in a moment of just realizing I was just reaching out for whatever. And she was my oldest best friend. And to
Yeah.
me, the one person that showed up for me, it was her. Like
Yeah.
she dropped everything with her babies and showed up.
Yeah.
And that spoke huge to me because I had lifelong friends that I reached out to who didn't even return my communications.
Yeah.
That broke my heart, right? Because in that moment, you were super vulnerable.
Yes.
So yeah, and that's the thing is we all deal with those situations and you look back and you go, like if I look back now, I go, I completely understand why mom was upset. Like I completely understand that. It was weird.
And it wasn't warranted,
right?
though. So
Maybe so, but I can understand it now. Whereas at the time I was like, I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And I think it's funny because we're all very different, and yet we're all similar in some ways.
Yes.
Because for me, in grief, I'm angry. Like I don't want to talk to you. I'm shut down. I'll take care of you and I'll make sure you get through, but just leave me alone. I don't want to discuss it. I don't want to talk about good times. I don't want to talk about memories. Leave me alone. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like a shell. So I don't sound like I care,
That's more like
and yeah, I'm more like you, but at
Yeah.
the same time, you are very strong. And at the same time, you're very, very sensitive, obviously, because of what's happened. And we're all sensitive, right? That's, I think, where we're the same, but we express it so different.
Totally differently.
So very interesting. And we're not good at communicating when we are stressed. None of us are good at that.
No, isn't that funny? It's in all my like times I've done therapy and even marriage counseling and things like that. That's what it comes down to is when there's pressure or stress on me, I shut down. I'll deal
And
with
I think
it.
that's normal in most people. Most people aren't at their best when they're stressed,
Well, of
right?
course.
Like you're not like, I'm stressed. I'm awesome. I'm on my A game, right? You're not.
Yeah.
But even more so when you're in a family dynamic, right? There's just, the triggers, like everything is just so much more heightened.
Yeah.
So yeah, very interesting time, and looking back on it, like, things that I would have done different, things I wish I'd said or I didn't say, or, all that stuff. We all do that. But, yeah.
I think
but I think
the beauty of it is being able to take stock, right?
yes.
And to
Right.
love each other and to know, like, it's funny. I have friends who will tell me, I talk to my mom every day. And I'm like, I can't remember the last time I just picked up the phone and called my mom. Like
Right.
we FaceTime with the kids.
Yeah.
I'll talk to you when we're on a Zoom,
Yeah.
like
Right.
but I know that if I was in a situation that I needed my family,
Yeah.
you'd be there in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
we'd be
like,
there.
And I would do the same. Like
Yeah.
there's that I think such a deep bond with us, even with our crazy differences. Like we are very unique in our personalities, but I love that. I think it extends even into our extended family in that way too. Like even with my aunts and uncles, I don't feel exceptionally close to everybody. Like we're big, happy, lovey family, but I know if I needed them, they'd be there. I could reach out and
Mhm.
talk to them. Right. And I think that's beautiful.
We can pick up from where we left off.
Always.
It's
Yeah.
easy to pick up from left off. It doesn't matter what was in between.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're not that kind
Well,
of
we're not
family.
grudge holders either, really.
No, you can't live that
Right?
way.
Like you can live in
can't.
anger for stages. Like we can have
That's
our teenage
Yeah.
angst or our,
Yeah.
our young adult trials that we've been through, but
Yeah.
none of us have ever stayed there. And I think
No.
that's really, I grant that a lot to our spiritual upbringing and to our, a lot of our guidance that we have, but our personalities too. And just the fact that we've learned in our own families. I don't know any grudges in our own families
And
where
what
people
does-
are like, I don't talk to that family member.
But I think mom
don't
even more than dad, but I think both of them were really really big at making sure, like, we said sorry and we asked for forgiveness, and that we made things right as much as we could in anything, not even just within the home, but if we'd done something outside or whatever. And I think that's a big deal, because you're taking the onus. Like, part of this is my fault, right? I do have a responsibility here. And I think that's really held well. And I think, like, I appreciate that probably more than a lot of lessons I learned in our family, because I know that's passed on to my kids. Like, my kids know we're family and we're tight. And it's funny, when we were talking earlier, just about family as a whole, my kids, one of the things that they know is we're the Calvinistes. So wherever we go, we're the Calvinistes, and we represent the Calvinistes. Not in the sense that, keep it in the family, like, don't tell anybody, but we represent the Calvinistes, and we want us to look good.
Right.
So everything we do, we're a team. We're a team.
Yeah.
Right. So if you're ticked off at her, that's fine. You can be ticked off at her. But right now we're going there, and you're not going to treat her different. Right. Because we're the Calvinistes going there. Right. So I think I appreciate that, because I always felt like we were the Hainers. Right. And that's who we were. And we represented that. And I didn't want to make my parents look bad. I didn't want our family to look bad. I wanted to represent that. And I think Mom and Dad did that really, really well.
Yeah.
When it comes to that respect thing.
Legacy. And that's a legacy statement too, because think about it. I can go anywhere on Manitoulin and use the name Hainer, and most people who've been there most of their lives will be like, oh, I know your granddad or whatever, There's a legacy attached to it, and whether there was one before or not, you create that. So you're creating a Calvinistic legacy. We're creating our own legacy, but they did that with us, right? We have a Schwitt legacy, we have a Hainer legacy, and it's a beautiful legacy. Like, there was no the drama of family drama that I see in all these other situations, and I feel for families that live in family drama. I can't even imagine the stress of that on top of.
Yeah, no.
Right?
Yeah.
So I think I'd say, out of all that, one thing that I would take away is, if as hearing the stories and everything we've talked about, if you can do one thing and even start now, it's what's the legacy you want to create, and set aside everything else. It doesn't matter what went before. It doesn't matter, we've been up and down through some really dark valleys and some really high, mountains, but whatever went before doesn't matter. It's what you're creating. And I think Dawn, I think you're doing an amazing job with your family doing that. I think Mom's done an amazing job, and she's still creating legacy, even at, I'm not going to say old, but she doesn't look her age, so she's much younger than she looks.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, it's something that it doesn't matter what age you're at or what stage your family's at. I think we all have the power to create legacy and to do something really unique with what we've got.
Yeah, and for me, like, the takeaway, even just hearing Mom talk it again, even though we know a lot of these stories, she's recreated herself time and time and time again, different ages, different stages in her family's life. And even having to go back again, after a longer period of being a certain thing in life, and realizing, I don't know who I am anymore. So who am I going to be? And I think as moms, that's common, right? At different stages, like, your kids grow up and don't really need you anymore. Who am I? Right? All I was a mom, and I equated myself as a mom, or a mom and this person in a work field. And now I'm retiring, and now that work isn't me anymore. And having to really know, like, take time. Don't just rush into something else and decide, okay, well, now I'm going to be that. Like, who are you now at this stage? You may not be that person you were 15 years ago. You may have totally different interests and likes and passions and things that you enjoy. And it's great for your kids to see that. Like, for me, as Mom's daughter, it tells me I'm not done when I'm done something, right? Like, there's no end. I don't have to say, well, I'm a mom and that's all I am for the rest of my life. No, I will be a mom for the rest of my life, but I can be this, or I can be that. I could be this for a time, and I could be something else later. Like, it's very inspirational to me to know that life can continue to develop and evolve, and you can keep growing and changing and being strong as a woman. And I think that really shows your kids, like anything is possible. You can do it all.
You never know.
Right? And do it well.
Yeah, that's very good, Dawn. You never know what's around the corners, what you're saying.
Right.
And when you said don't rush into it, that's true. Because there takes a time of mental assessing, and don't put such high expectations on yourself to come up with it the next morning.
Right.
Sometimes it just takes that time of creating, and day in and day out, and
trying new things
falls along, and be honest with yourself. you were talking about, the forgiveness thing. One thing my dad always taught us was sorry isn't good enough. When you go to someone and say, I'm sorry, they have no interaction with you when you say that. I said, oh, well, what? He says, because he said, you've done something and they have to respond to that. So if you say, will you forgive me? They have to say yes or no. They give you an answer.
It's a release, whichever way they go.
So he said, it's better if you say, I am sorry, but I would really like to be forgiven. Will you forgive me for doing this? And then you get that response, yes, or else they may say, well, no, because of blah, 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 blah. And they tell you something. They say, okay, then will you forgive me for that? I am sorry. Will you forgive me for that? Because then he says, usually then they are able to unload themselves and come to a place and says, whether you agree with it or not, you need to have forgiveness. Whether you do or not, you need to have forgiveness.
It's for you more than
so
them.
He says,
yeah.
I remember he told me a monkey, when they go to catch monkeys, they have the nets up above, and they, in a big log, they put a hole in it, and they put the food in the hole, but the hole's smaller than the monkey's hand to get out. He can put his hand in, it's that small, but he grabs the food and goes to take it out, and he can't get it out because the hole's too tight, and he won't let go. So he's going to die there, get trapped, and down comes. He says, that's no good, right? So let go. Ask them. Say, okay. He says, whether you agree with it or not. I said, now there's lines there that, they're going to live with. And he says, if they're wrong and they know it, they'll live with that.
That's on them. Yeah.
That's on them. That ball has been shot.
But you've done your part.
In that court, and it's on that side of the net. Don't pick it up again. Don't go there. It's done.
Yeah, let it go.
So those, and you touched on that. I just I just remembered the little thing that my dad had said about that. So, yeah, we as kids, we couldn't just say we're sorry. I remember different times, and so, and your brother or sister would yell back at you, yeah, but you blah, blah, and tell you, and you say, so we have to repeat, well, I'm sorry.
Sorry again.
And please forgive me. And you go off to your room or go somewhere and think, that really wasn't true. That wasn't true. You think about it and think, well, is that, and where is that getting you?
Exactly.
What's that doing to you?
Does that serve you
is
at all?
That any good? No. Let it go. So was the let it go that thing about that, and then think about the monkey. Okay, let it go.
Now we just sing the Frozen song.
This is for Elsa and Anna.
That's for Elsa and Anna. Well, what? We could talk, I know, for hours, and we'll do this again. It's always fun to have us chatting together. How often do we get to do this anymore, right? We don't. One of these days, we will get to Guatemala, and then we can all record one together. How's that?
Good in person.
And when I say I miss you, I tell the kids I love them and I really miss them. I know you just can't be here. And I know it's a long distance and it's a lot of money to be doing that. And you can start feeling guilty because you're not, but I don't mean it that way. I just want you to, I just do. I love you and I just miss you. I want to hug you all the time. And the same thing with Holly, but she's a distance too, but that's just a mama thing.
Of course. I would feel the same about my
I feel that too.
I've actually made a promise. It's another one of those tricks. I do a lot of tricking, I'm realizing. I'm a tricky person.
Tricky Mickey.
I told my kids that they're actually not allowed to live any further than a 30-mile radius from their mother, because if they do, they're out of the will.
Oh. Yeah.
So they've already made plans. So we're good.
My kids are already figured out where they're living. It's nowhere near me. Yeah, they're nowhere near me. But they've all decided what they're buying, so that when I visit them, I can stay, and then they come visit me. I have to have a place for them. So it at least sounds like there's lots of visits. So
at least you're allowed to be there.
Yeah. I hope that all their spouses are good with that.
Yeah, well, too bad. I've already set that up too. So,
Yeah, I too.
From you, I'm just learning from everyone else around me all the things I need to brainwash my children for ahead of time. So I'll let you know how that all turns out.
I remember when I was in grade 4 that I was coloring outside with my little girlfriend, and she said to me, Marilyn, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I said, what do you want to do? She says, well, I said, I want to be a mom. I want 4 children, and I want to marry a school teacher, but I don't want to marry a minister. So I said, and I want to live in the town always where my mom and dad live. So you see, it didn't happen. It did for 21 years, but it didn't happen after that. So all those things. So none of those, and I never had 4 children, and blah blah blah. So yeah, so things change.
She stopped after perfection. I mean, you can.
Exactly.
That's right.
Can't top the youngest.
I know. After my birth, like it's a miracle she had you, frankly.
Yeah,
That she wanted to try it again.
that's a whole other story.
That was a planned one. Right on plan.
My goodness. Well, I hope you enjoyed our first inaugural session, ladies. It was so much fun talking to you. We will do more of this because this is a lot of fun.
Love being with you girls.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Thanks. Nice to see you.
Would you like to learn more? Find me on Instagram and YouTube at Mom Days Podcast.